Blessed be everyone. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we are talking about the 10 most common questions that people ask about the tarot. Maybe you have some of these questions, or perhaps you know people who've asked you these questions. So we're going to talk about that and answer all 10 of those questions. Before we do though, my name is Sandra. I am the author of Crafting Your Wiccan Path. If you want to know more about Wicca, witchcraft, tarot and magic, shadow work, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you don't miss any videos. If you want to read the tarot with ease using your intuition, I have a free video. It's called How to Read the Tarot with Ease. There's a link in the description field below this video, and it will just help you. It actually gives you an exercise to do to show you just how easy it is to read the tarot using your intuition. So let's start with those 10 questions. Question number 1 is, what is tarot? So people may have heard of tarot and they're asking you, well, what is it exactly? Tarot is a deck of cards, essentially, with pictures on them, and they can be divided into 2 or 3 sort of components. So there's 78 cards in the entire deck, 22 of which are part of what's called the major arcana or trump cards. Then you have the rest of the cards can be divided into 4 different suits, very much like the playing cards are divided into pretty similar suits. You've got cups, you've got wands, you've got swords, and you have pentacles. Now in some decks they may be named other things, like pentacles could be called discs, for example, or stones. Swords are sometimes called scimitars in some of the more older decks. You've got also the wands can sometimes be rods, and well, cups usually is cups. Sometimes it might be chalice, but usually it is cups. And in those suited tarot cards, or the pip cards, the minor arcana cards, you have them numbered from ace through to 10, and then you've got a 4 lot of court cards. There is the page, the knight, the queen, and the king. Now sometimes they're named different things too according to what particular deck, but overall that is the general structure. And that's what the tarot cards are. Bits of cardboard that have pictures on them and are divided into these different components which help a person as a reader understand more about how they can read the cards when they turn up, and also to play the game of tarocchi is another reason that they're divided into different decks. The game of tarot, which is where tarot kind of originated from, it was a game of tarocchi or tarocchi, depending on how you want to pronounce it, is a game pretty similar to the game of 500, if anyone's played 500. So it's kind of similar. So you could also play games with it. I have played solitaire with the tarot cards, so you can use them for gaming as well. That's question number 1 answered. Question number 2 is, how does the tarot work? Well, if you're using it for divination, which is generally the reason why people use tarot, is for guidance. We're looking for some guidance from our subconscious mind, telling us what's going on with our lives and giving us more clarity about what's going on and where that could potentially end up if we keep going along the same path that we're currently going on. Now, tarot can also be used to kind of predict the future, because the future can be really not that difficult to predict when it comes to human behavior. If you're doing certain behaviors, you're most likely to continue to do them, and so there's outcomes that are most likely going to happen as a result of that. So the tarot can predict future outcomes. But a lot of the time it's really about getting clarity around a situation and understanding why these things are happening in our lives and how we might be able to intervene and change things for the better, to make things work better for us. So it can give us insight into ourselves, our psyche, and the trajectory that our lives are on, with the aim of trying to make that easier and better in some way. Number 3. Can anyone learn to read the tarot? Pretty much yes. You can learn to read the tarot no matter how psychic you think you are or how psychic you think you're not. Anyone can learn to read the tarot. If you have the ability to learn something, you have the ability to learn the tarot. So it's not something that is reserved for people with any particular talents or skills. If you can pick up a tarot deck, if you can look at the pictures and see the pictures, then you can read tarot. And even if you had vision impairment, there may be other ways that you can get around with the tarot as well, using auditory senses. I haven't yet come across any of those ways yet, but I'm sure that somebody could figure one of those ways out. Now, when it comes to the tarot, I spoke before about the major arcana and the minor arcana. So what's the difference between the two? Well, the major arcana cards are used to be called the trump cards. They're not called that so much now, but definitely in the game of Taroki, that is what they were called, the trump cards. And these cards have usually people on them, and these, from a tarot divination perspective, the major arcana cards are really the more spiritual aspects of a person, or the more archetypal aspects of one's psyche, if you want to look at it that way. And so they represent the different cycles of life that we move through when we move from becoming into this world, very, very naive, full of adventure, we hope, and then going through all of these different experiences of self, learning about ourselves, learning about the world, and developing right through till the end, which is the world card. So it's kind of about a psychological, spiritual, psycho-spiritual experience that people have as they move through life. Now, the minor arcana tend to depict everyday, mundane events that happen in a life. So this can be meeting somebody, getting married, having children kind of thing, or getting a job, or building a business, or something that's more of an everyday thing that is a part of the world of surviving in the world and being in the world on a mundane level, an everyday level. These cards are very helpful in indicating where things might be going if you have a business, or if you've got a relationship, where that might be going, or a job, or conflict, communication, those sorts of things. And when you blend the minor arcana cards with the major arcana cards in a reading, then you can get the psychological depth often behind circumstances, and the circumstances are pretty much coming up with the minor arcana. Now, the minor arcana cards are divided from ace through to 10, and then you have the court cards, which is the pages, the knights, the queens, and the kings. And the court cards generally represent people or situations or messages that are coming in. So they'll relate a lot to who is doing what and where, and even yourself. Messages, events that are happening, while the ace through to 10 will be telling you about certain circumstances. They can also speak to events as well, and sometimes even to some psychological aspects too. So that's the difference between the two, generally speaking. So question number 5 is, do you have to be psychic to read the tarot? No, you don't, but it helps. It can certainly help if you are very connected to your intuition and you know how to allow your intuition to guide you. If you are psychic and you are able to pick things up from guides or spirits, or even connecting to people, you're just very telepathic, you're just very, very psychic, empathic person, then it helps. It does make it easier to read the tarot if you already have skills and talents in that area. But if psychic is something that you haven't acquired in your lifetime, or if it's something that isn't necessarily something that you feel is big in your life, you can still learn to read the tarot and learn to read using your intuition. Learn how to engage those psychic functions again by using the tarot. Question number 6 is, can tarot predict the future? Yes, it can predict the future. It doesn't always predict the future, but it can. And it does that because of the likelihood that the trajectory that you're on is most likely going to be the trajectory that you stay on. Most people aren't conscious of what they're doing in life. We might think we are, but we're not really conscious. We're only semi-conscious. And we just go about doing the same things, the same behaviours, the same way of reacting, the same way of doing things, unless we go into the inner work and try to change aspects of ourselves that aren't working for us. Most of the time, we're just plodding along on the same trajectory without consciously changing it at all. And the tarot, that makes it easier for the tarot to sometimes predict what the most likely outcome is going to be should you continue to go on that trajectory. So yes, it can tell the future. There isn't really a future, to be honest. Everything is in the now. There is only the now. So it's like the tarot is telling other variations or other realities that can eventuate from a behaviour that you're experiencing now or a situation that you're experiencing now. It'll give you the most likely outcome, given what you're doing now. So always think of being in the now and try to live in the now. The now determines the future, if that makes sense. Question number 7, and I'm looking at my cheat sheet down here, that's why I keep looking down. How do you choose a tarot deck? Well, tarot decks come in literally all different shapes and sizes now, so it can be very, very overwhelming to go into a store or even go online and look at all of the different tarot decks. It's like, where do I start? I do recommend that people start with some of the older decks like the Waite-Smith deck or the Rider-Waite deck, simply because that deck's got a lot of the esoteric symbolism associated with it. So it's going to give you more access to the meanings of the cards coming from sort of more history and the meanings of the cards historically. There are a lot of modern decks that only focus on certain aspects of the card, so you're not necessarily getting the whole aspect of the card with some of the modern artwork. And then other modern decks do involve all of that. Some decks interpret the cards, the focus of the cards is more psychological rather than predictive. So different decks will have different focus. So it's understanding what you want to use your tarot cards for and then looking for a deck that gives you that. So read up on the deck themselves, the person who's created the deck, and if you can, have a look at the cards, each card in the deck before you buy the deck. And that can be difficult. Often they're in plastic, they're wrapped up, and you can't actually go and have a look at them, or if they're online, you can probably have a better chance online because often you'll find them displayed in online stores, so they'll show you all of the decks. Find one that kind of calls to you, one that you like, that you really feel attracted to, and then read up on it and see if its focus is on what it is you want it to do. Are you looking more for a psychological approach to the tarot? Are you looking more for predictive aspects to the tarot? There's a lot more books written for the Waite-Smith deck than any other deck, and even though those tarot books still apply to pretty much most of the decks out there, because those books are specifically about the Waite-Smith deck, it's the best deck to start with because they'll go into the design of the deck, what each thing in the deck means, like each aspect of the picture, like the colours that they're wearing, what they're carrying, what they're doing, who else is there, what else is there, where the mountains are. There is so much information on the symbolism of Waite-Smith deck that if you want to become a good tarot reader, you really need to be looking at that deck at some stage. Otherwise, what you're attracted to, and you'll probably find, like most people, you'll have more than one deck. You'll become a bit of a collector of tarot, and you'll find that at different times you'll be drawn to one deck than another deck. And if you do want to read for other people, sometimes you can give them the choice as to which deck they would like you to read from too. So it gives you a lot of choice if you've got more than one deck. Now, question number 8 is how to prepare for a reading. So if you're giving the reading, you do want to make sure that you are in a connected state with your intuition. If you work with guides, then with your guides. So you may want to do a little bit of deep breathing, like maybe take 3 deep breaths and let it out before you start. Give yourself time and give yourself space. If you can, cleanse your space, cleanse your cards before you give the reading, so you're cleansing them of any energy that may be from somebody else that you've been reading for, and also from yourself if you're reading for somebody else. You may want to say a prayer or a little chant inside your head or out loud for guidance from any helping spirit that you might work with, or just simply guidance from your higher self. And if you can, before you start your readings for the day, do some meditation and really feel connected to your cards. If you're going for a reading, pretty similar things. You want to go knowing exactly what question you want to ask. What do you want to know from the tarot? You need to be clear in your question. It can't be a loose question or a very big, broad question, because it's going to get tricky for you to really understand what the cards are going to come up with if you're too broad. Sometimes you might go with a question and the cards seem to be answering another question that you weren't even thinking of. So often whatever your focus is subconsciously is what the cards are going to answer. So be clear about what it is that you want to know. Do not ask questions that are closed questions, like yes or no questions. You don't want to ask questions that are like, when is something going to happen, or will something happen? If it's got a yes or a no answer, then it's going to be difficult for the cards to really help you with that. The cards will give you a lot of information that will probably answer the yes or no question, no doubt, but they're not going to go yes or no in the same way that, say, a pendulum would just go yes or no. You're going to get a lot more detail with a reading in a tarot reading. And sometimes the outcome may not be clear because you haven't really made the decision yet. So your future could go either way. It could go in various different directions. You don't actually know at this point in time. So make sure that you've got a very clear question, preferably a question that's more a how question. So you're asking guidance of the cards rather than trying to get a yes or a no from them. And yes, make sure that you're focused when you're shuffling the deck. Make sure that you're focusing on the question, and only focus on that question as you're shuffling the deck. And when you feel it's time to stop shuffling, and then you would give that deck to whoever's reading for you. If you're reading for yourself, of course, you want to make sure you do all of those things. You want to be clear in your question. You want to make sure that you've got a calm mind. You might want to do a little meditation before you start, or take 3 deep breaths just to calm the nervous system down. And you might want to purify your tarot deck, running it through some incense. You might want to light a candle, get some atmosphere going so that you can start to tune into your intuition, and then ask the question, shuffle the deck. And when you feel it's time to stop shuffling, or if cards start to fall out by themselves, then it's time to stop shuffling the deck. Okay. How often should you read your tarot cards? Well, if you're reading for yourself, you don't want to be reading that often, unless you've got a lot of different questions. You could read daily, particularly if you're learning the cards. You might want to do a daily spread or a daily card just to get a sense of the day. You could do that at the beginning of the day, and then at the end of the day look back and see where that card may have been relevant to your day. The best advice is don't ask the same question more than once. So if you find that you're doing a reading, you didn't like the response the cards gave you, don't ask the question again and do another reading. The only time you would want to do another reading on the same question is if the cards are really unclear about what it is that they're unclear in what they're saying to you, or you're not clear in what they're trying to say to you. So you may need to then rethink your question and then ask another variation of that question to get more clarity. But don't ask the same question more than once a day of the cards. And if you do have a lot of different questions to ask, it's okay to do multiple readings. It depends on how much time you have and how much energy you have for reading. But daily is good if you're wanting just general daily readings or weekly readings, doing a reading at the beginning of the month to see how your month's going to go, that kind of thing. And question number 10 is common spreads. The most common spread you're going to find is the Celtic Cross spread. It is a very good spread. It gives you a bit of a background as to the history of where you got to where you are. It lets you know where you are and what's going on with you now, which is the only time you can be in is the now. And then the possible outcomes from the now, as well as what's going on for you in your environment, how you're viewing the situation. That might be helping, it might be hindering, and what your hopes and what your fears might be, and then the overall outcome of the situation given all of those things playing in together. Another common one is the horseshoe spread. It's a 7-card spread. It's pretty similar, it just leaves out a couple of extra details. It's a good one to, again, you're looking at the past influences, the situation that you're in now, and what the likely outcome is going to be. Most tarot spreads will talk about the now and also give you a little bit of the past. And the reason why is because the past leads to the now, and you need to have, if you've got an understanding of how things have gone in the past, it can actually help you see patterns that you might need to change, or why that happened can actually help you change your trajectory so that you're moving forward. You may be able to influence your situation in a way that's going to be more favourable to you. So don't discount the past, learn from it, and the current situation will also have a lot of information in there for you as well. So do spend time with the past and the present in a reading. Don't just skip to the future because you want to know what's going to happen in the future. And I know that happens for all of us. All of us would like somebody to come and just say, hey, this is going to happen in your future, so that we could feel more confident about something. We don't have to worry about something, that kind of thing. But use the tarot to help understand yourself and the situation so that you do have more inner control over yourself and more of a positive influence on your future. And if the future doesn't seem to be that positive as an outcome, you can then find ways to navigate your way through that terrain. So if it is a bit rocky, you can navigate through that, because you've got, the tarot will give you information on how you can navigate through any rocky terrain that you may be in already, and anything that may be coming up in the possible future. The tarot can only tell the possible future, because it can't tell the way it's going to happen and be definite about that, because you have the ability to change your trajectory, and you're only living in the now after all. So they're the 10 most common questions answered about the tarot. I hope that helped. If you do want to become a confident tarot reader, I have a course called the Confident Tarot Reader course, and it will teach you how to read the tarot using your intuition and storytelling, as well as your knowledge of the cards. There's a link in the description field below this video for how you can enroll in that course. I also do tarot coaching, so if you do want a tarot reading with me, I offer half-hour and full-hour readings. There's a link in the description field below this video for how you can book a tarot coaching session with me as well. If you liked the video, hit the like button, share it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe. I am Sandra from mysterywitchschool.com. Blessed be.